Hello once again, ladies and gentlemen. We have a lot to talk about. This is the Speed Street Podcast. My name is Connor Daly. I am a race fan, also an IndyCar driver. I'm here with my producer, Bobby. Bobby is very smart, and he's got a great beard. We have a lot to talk about on this episode. A fantastic race in Phoenix. Absolutely, hang the banner. One of the best oval races we've seen in a long time. So glad we are back at Phoenix. It was painful to not be out there. But I can also still enjoy a good motor race. I was having a great time watching it. Just super, super happy that IndyCar and Firestone, everyone worked together. Let's say thank you to them, because there's not a lot of thank yous out there on the internet, just a lot of people that hate everything. So when everyone's angry, everyone voices it. But I think everyone at IndyCar, the technical department, Firestone, rounds of applause all around for that package. The research was done, the plan was executed, and we had a tremendous short oval motor race in front of a fantastic crowd. And shout out all the folks who came out, because again, if we want to see more ovals, which a lot of the internet does, you got to go out and support them. So it was awesome. This episode as well, we will also, I'm going to finally announce, I guess this is it, but I will be in the Indy 500 again for the Dry Reinbold Racing Team, the number 23 car. That has been announced by the time this has come out. We have some things to continue to announce around that. I've been signed for quite a long time with Dreyer. And we haven't really been. Obviously, you've seen the fact that our sponsors are also with JHR, and there's been a lot going on the back end, and I cannot even begin to explain to you how busy it is on the back end, how busy it is behind the scenes on just trying to make sure everything is done correctly, everything is done efficiently, and that I can also be driving as much as possible. But right now, the only focus is the Indy 500. And that, everyone, not that was an easy thing to get done, but thankfully, my history at that race has made it almost not a simple thing to get done, but that was always going to happen. I've known Dennis a long time, and Dennis, obviously, I had to drive for him in 2024, had a great relationship with that team. The team is fantastic. We're going to have more announcements as we go on the sponsors. Obviously, Arco has been supporting me, and just continue to stay faithful to those guys. The car looked great. Renus's car looked great over the weekend. It was a shame he tangled with Alex Palou, but Arco is still very much behind me. But we've got some, we got announcements as we got car reveals, we got things coming up. But for right now, all I'm going to say is that we're in the Indy 500 with Dry Reinbold and in the number 23 car. So pumped to be teammates with Jack Harvey again. And what's kind of weird about this is obviously I'm so lucky to be a part of this effort and so lucky to be a part of the Indy 500. But coming off of last year, it's definitely been painful to have to go through this whole process of only being, one race currently. I'm very honest on this show. I'll tell you, I'm very honest, Bobby, that it is a challenge to be super happy about everything that's going on. But I've been working a lot on just trying to, manage one day at a time. And we've got something to focus on here. And I wanted to make sure that we got this out there so that all the kind folks that have been super supportive of me across the internet and at the races, again, great to see so many folks at Phoenix who are, asking about if I'd have a ride, and finally I can at least share the first part of the plan with you all. So it's been tough, and I am excited about the Indy 500, and I know that we will have an incredible chance to do it. But for me, it's just like I'm hoping this is a stepping stone to being back to full time. That my goal is to be a full time IndyCar driver That's the plan in a competitive situation, as competitive as possible. And this is the first step, hopefully, to getting back there. So, yeah, that's it. So we got that out of the way. We're going to the Indy 500. Bobby, how you doing, first of all? Let's get you involved. How great weekend of motor racing. So much motor racing. I watched F1. I want to talk a little bit about that. I got to witness the NASCAR O'Reilly Auto Parts Racing Series in person. I went home before the Cup race, but I watched the Cup race on TV. But, man, great weekend of motor racing out there.
It was, yeah. No, I had high hopes for the doubleheader. I just, in my brain, knew the potential of what it could be, and it so surpassed it. And I'm just, as a racing fan in general, I'm really, really excited about what the whole United States motorsports scene showed this past weekend. It was really, really awesome.
I completely agree. And there's a lot to get into for this race. So I want to get right into it. There are some very important incidents we have to discuss. Christian Rasmussen, Will Power. I'm going to give you my thoughts on that after talking to some other drivers and just kind of going through. Let's have a talk about it. There's a lot of clips, a lot of video clips about it. The Rinus VeeKay, Alex Palou incident. That was a wild one too. Can you imagine? Like, oh my gosh, Alex Palou in the wall very early on. A lot of the IndyCar haters who were like, "Oh, Alex Palou now wins everything." We are so back. Everyone's back now. Like, are we fully in support again? Because that was a different result. So we're going to talk about that. But let's just get right into it and go through the results in case you missed it. Pato O'Ward was not the winner, but he was the first name that I just saw pop up as I scrolled up. Josef Newgarden was the winner, of course. Josef Newgarden only led 8 laps and made 5 pit stops. So this was a classic Iowa pre-repave is how I described it. A lot of tire wear, wanting to be on new tires at the end was the move. Kyle Kirkwood finished second. Kyle Kirkwood looked great. Kyle Kirkwood is very mature. He is maturing into a very, very, very smart race car driver. David Malukas, oddly enough, David Malukas actually led the most laps. I did not realize that, but David Malukas led the most laps of the race. You would have thought that was Christian Rasmussen, but he had to come from the back. Pato O'Ward finished 4th. Again, super solid. Super solid day from Pato. Marcus Armstrong, who I said in my fantasy picks, he's a short oval guy. Just kind of a quiet day, but again, if for a quiet day you're finishing 5th, that's pretty solid. Alex Rossi started 6th, finished 6th. For a while, he looked real bad. At the beginning, he was way in the back. He was also on that 5 pit stop strategy. He had fresh tires at the end, made him work. Scott Dixon was 7th after a tough weekend at St. Pete. He had a bit of a rebound. Scott McLaughlin just kind of had a very calm weekend. He didn't have the normal Penske dominant short oval speed, and I don't know why. When I talked to him, he just I don't know if he liked this track. And some tracks suit drivers, some tracks don't. And so for this one, Scott seemed to just be kind of on the other end of that. Just wasn't super thrilled with it. Solid top 10 for Graham Rahal, finishing 9th. I think that RLL team could be super pumped about that. I mean, the RLL team qualified 3rd and 4th. Shout out to those guys. They knew what they had to do in the offseason, and they did it. They haven't won on a short oval yet, but to have 2 cars on the second row of the grid, to have Graham in the top 10, I mean, Graham had been struggling. The RLL team in general had been struggling on the oval. So that's what happens when a team puts in the work. They did it. Kiffin Simpson was 10th. He was in my fantasy picks because, again, quiet top 10 day. He was on the 5-stop strategy. He was kind of having a bit of a struggle throughout the race, but you always got to stay in the fight on these ovals. Santino Ferrucci, 11th. Felix Rosenquist, 12th after starting last after crashing before qualifying. Christian Lundgaard, 13th. Still probably not super thrilled with these short ovals. 14th was Christian Rasmussen. We'll talk about him. 15th, Dennis Hauger, after one of the craziest spins and reverse down the straight that I've ever seen. I have no idea how he didn't crash. That was so impressive. Will Power, 16th. Marcus Ericsson, 17th. Mick Schumacher, 18th. Kyle Collette, 19th. Nolan Siegel, 20th. Stingray Robb, 21st. Rinus VeeKay, 22nd. Louis Foster, Alex Palou, and poor Romain Grosjean didn't even get to start the race. That was a tough start for those guys. So A lot to talk about in this race, Bobby. I want to go through a couple. I want to hear your highlights of the race, and then I want to get right into. We don't really have to talk about qualifying. Like David Malukas on pole, that was awesome. It was going to happen sooner rather than later. He was fast. He's always been fast. The guy had an incredible qualifying run. But there was so much in this race that I want to cover that I want to get to. But what were your favorite parts? And again, I didn't get to watch the exact TV broadcast. I know there are some people that hate everything that IndyCar does that had a little bit of a problem with the broadcast. I didn't necessarily get to watch it picture in picture every second of the broadcast, but the track TV has something very similar to what the actual TV broadcast is. But what did you think of it?
Well, I want to say, first of all, from qualifying, just the one thing I want to touch on, Mick Schumacher qualifying fourth. I mean, the only thing I'll say about it, obviously, that didn't transition to him having a solid finish, but the fact that he tested at Phoenix and then was able to use what he learned at the test to then go out and qualify well, that just shows his ability as a driver. So I'm excited to see that down the road this season. That's really all I want to say about it. Like, there's
Great effort,
special quality in a driver that can learn from testing and then be able to produce in competition. Not everyone can do that, so that was kind of cool. You got to see his IQ, I think, in qualifying. The race itself,
and he had to go out first too,
right?
But
exactly.
We can talk a little bit about the track. A lot of drivers said that the track actually, the Alex Palou told me the wind shifted in the middle of qualifying, and a lot of the people at the end were actually hurt by the way the wind shifted.
Right.
But sometimes you might get lucky, and he had to go out first and held that fourth spot. Yeah. Held a lot of the upper echelon grid spots for a very long time.
Yeah, no, it's impressive. In the race itself, I was a little nervous just from watching the NASCAR races at Phoenix over the last few years. Like it admittedly, before this weekend, it was one of my least favorite tracks, just because it kind of locks down and there's long runs. There's not a lot of passing, so I didn't know how that was going to translate to IndyCar. But they just, I mean, hats off to the paddock. Like they crushed it. They did such a good job. There was so many, comers and goers. You could, the battles took a long time, but they actually amounted to something. I feel like, and then, at the end for those guys to pit for tires and then be able to actually, Josef to be able to come to the front, like, you don't really see that on the NASCAR side. Like the guys that pit for 4 at the end, they don't always make it to the front. Like we saw it with Denny in November, and we saw it with Christopher Bell on Sunday. Like if you pit for 4 versus for 2, you don't always make it to the front. But Josef proved that wrong, and it was a really compelling race from start to finish. There was just a lot to watch.
No, I agree. And, IndyCar just posted Will Powers on board from the start, and I mean, he is lane 3. He is way high, both ends. The track opened up really well. And that's what we want to see. And that's not, I actually do believe that, I don't know if, I'm not going to say I forced everyone to do it, but I'm going to say I think the drivers in general have become more willing to explore. Like when we were here racing in 16 and 17, I don't think I ever went half a lane up the entire race. And again, completely different downforce package. We had a ton more downforce. We were going, 20 mile an hour faster, way faster. Not 20 mile an hour, but a lot faster. And so it is on the drivers, but it's also on the series. Everyone just spread out, and that was good. And as the tires were degrading, you saw people on different lines. You saw some people were better in the middle stint once they got their car sorted out. There was so much to follow. And as a fan, right? So this is one of the first times I think this is one of the first times in maybe over 5 or 6 years that I've actually watched an IndyCar oval race, like from the grands. I was in a suite with Arco, and I could see the whole track. I don't remember the last time I did that. I really don't. Because thankfully I've been in a lot of the oval races for the last 10 years, but 5, 6 years. And every time I looked around the track, no matter where it was, something was happening. Now, again, TV can't catch all of that. But if you're a fan and you're like, well, I'd like to go to a motor race to be entertained, I'm going to an IndyCar short oval race. I'm going there because there was something happening all the time. I was actually watching the IndyCar race as well with Chandler Smith and Zane Smith. NASCAR guys, they were enjoying the race. You know what I mean? it was cool to have them up in our suite and taking it all in. And I saw what Christian Rasmussen was doing as well, and I'm like, this guy's got it. This is the easiest race win I've ever potentially seen, because he could go everywhere, and he was doing everything, and he was the fastest. Now, there was some craziness out there too. Like, let's talk right at the beginning. Rinus VeeKay and Alex Palou. So I saw Kevin Harvick and Will Buxton were talking about that today. I just saw that clip before. Now, in NASCAR land, like, Rinus did get there. And I actually talked to Alex about this. It's about a 50-50 situation there. That's an oval racing. Like NASCAR, the spotters are going to be on that. Now, our spotters are really good too. But, Rinus did get there. But it's also, sometimes you can see, I had a very similar situation happen to me at the Indy 500 last year with Marcus Ericsson. I had this huge run around the outside of turn 1. Marcus Ericsson comes up last second. It's sort of early on in the race. I backed out. I knew that you can see people's momentum sometimes. And at the end of the day, if you're fighting for the win, I get it. But it was very early on for Rinus to do that. And I don't think it's Rinus's fault. I think that's more on Alex probably, and I think Alex believes that too. When I talk to him, he's like, it's probably 50-50. And I was like, yeah, I would agree with that. I mean, that's a racing thing that can happen sometimes. And you got to think as well, a lot of these runs are built late in the corner at Phoenix. Like, the way the track works, and you see this later obviously with Christian Rasmussen and Will Power, but a lot of the runs are built very late in the corner, and it's because some people try to keep the car down low, and that'll then cause you to kind of push up. But if you are able to run the high line, you have so much momentum exiting that corner, both ends, that sometimes that happens. So once we saw Alex Palou in the wall, though, I mean, all of a sudden, now we have a race. Now we're like, all right, we're gonna have a new winner, and it was unbelievable to see. So as soon as that happened, when we went green, I wanted to see who started to struggle first. And once we saw some people kind of taking that early pit stop, maybe trying to do the undercut, but then you had the folks that are doing the 3-stop, trying to stay out super long, I thought it was exactly what we needed. We had traffic, cars a lap down, people struggling. But when they caught traffic, they moved up a lane and tried to make it work. And you had to be really creative with the way you timed your runs, but you were able to make passes work. I mean, that's what you want out of a short oval. And I thoroughly enjoyed it. The Dennis Hauger spin was crazy. A lot of people, that's not on Christian Rasmussen there. Some people on the internet saw, maybe they took his air off his right rear. That doesn't really work that way in IndyCar, not as much. So that one might just be like, hey, Dennis was feeling the pressure and he was trying to get on the power there and just lost it. But probably one of the most impressive saves I think I've ever seen. That could have easily been a big crash. I don't know. I hate reversing in real life. Like, I literally hate reversing my road car. It's the most... reversing for me is my weakness. If I was going that fast in reverse down the front straight or the back straight, look, I don't know what I would have been. I don't know how I would have saved that. So shout out Dennis Hauger for doing that. But before we talk about a few other details, I think we got to get to the elephant in the room, and that's the Christian Rasmussen and Will Power thing. Will Power came all the way from the back to the front. And his defense of Christian Rasmussen was valiant, and it was great. However, Christian Rasmussen was going to win that race easily. Like, he had the fastest car, and we know that I don't like, I'm obviously not the biggest fan of ECR. That team did a great job. They gave him the fastest car, and he is a complete psycho on those ovals, but in a good way. But I don't know if that made him greedy and like, hey, I'm just going to pass everyone all the time. Like, that race, when he was in his own league, and everyone saw it, I mean, completely in his own league. The team did a great job. They were on the right strategy. Everything seemed to be kind of going the right way. But why throw that away? That was a big question for me. If you've been passing everyone with so much ease. Now, again, Will Power did give him a little bit more of a challenge than others, but one thing I learned very early on in my career is patience. And, they obviously got together. And Will Power, again, it probably didn't, probably should have. I actually don't blame Christian Rasmussen for the accident. I don't. I think Will Power, he was going to be tracking out. That's what normally you do. But Rasmussen did get there. And so, as Christian Rasmussen said, you can't just run into cars. Well, here's the problem I have with that. That's what Christian Rasmussen does. So, if shoe on the other foot, if that was Christian Rasmussen and Will Power was going to his outside, he's going to do the same thing. Christian Rasmussen, you don't just run into cars. Well, that happened to me. He ran directly into my car in Portland. I have a problem with what he said there because that is the way he races. He will hit anyone. That's his reputation. And so if you don't like that to happen to you, again, I don't think it was necessarily his fault. But the problem is that's how he races. So if you want to race like that, what are you going to expect when other people are just going to be like, yep, nope, I don't care that you're there? That is the question that I would ask. Again, Christian Rasmussen, super fast, class of the field, should have won the race. Team did great. Everything was awesome there. But if you don't want to be raced like that, then you can't race like that because everyone already knows in the series, and he said it himself. He's like, no, I'm not going to give anyone any room. Well, guess what, brother? That just happened to you. So that's the standard that he himself set. And boy, is it disappointing to have that happen. It is, because he should have won the race, as he said it. But when you don't respect anyone on the track, then you're not going to get any respect. So that's the one thing that I have to say about it. And I still don't think it was his fault. I really don't. But that is a standard that he set. And I even talked to Will Power a little bit about it. And he's like, yeah, I should have known who I was going to be racing. And yeah, that's for sure. Like, he's going to send it. But I talked to some other people, I won't name who they are, but it's like, look, if the shoe was on the other foot and the car on the inside was Will Power, or the car on the inside was Christian Rasmussen, ain't no way is he not just sliding up. And it didn't matter if Will Power was there or not. So that's just what I thought. What did you think about it, Bobby? I wanted to say that to people because, again, this isn't me just being a Christian Rasmussen hater. That guy was incredible. So fast, making the racing so exciting. But again, it's the lack of respect he has for anyone else that at the end of the day, if race how you want to be raced. I feel like that's a respectable thing to say.
No, I can agree with that. I think, I was watching it. I remember thinking as I was watching it, I'm like, Will is doing an awesome job defending, but there's no way he's going to be able to hold him off for, I think it was almost 30 laps to go.
Yeah, he was never going to be able to hold off Rasmussen. Never.
And when Christian got blocked, he would fall back a little bit, but he wasn't falling seconds back. Like, he was still right there. He would have been able to find, I think, a better spot than coming off of 4, And yeah, I think he could have definitely been more patient there. I would say if you're, comparing the two instances that we had between Palou and Rinus and then this, based on what happened to Alex versus what happened with Will and Christian, I feel like Christian was less there than Rinus was. Like Rinus had like a wheel, like he was like fully had a wheel, whereas like watching the in-car Will, it looks like Christian was like less there, if you get what I'm saying. Like,
yes, yeah, so, because Christian really he cut his left rear tire, or cut Will's right rear tire down,
right?
And he actually got super lucky the way he hit the wall. A lot of us up in the suite were like, his car is going to be fine.
Yeah, he hit square.
That's a hard haul. That's a hard hit on the wall.
Yeah.
So obviously the car was damaged, and
he didn't pit, and then you're still going like 180 into the corners after that. So like those tires are only going to take so much or whatever, But I wanted to ask you though, like etiquette wise. Okay, so like we see it here, we've seen it in NASCAR. Like we saw it with Carson Hocevar at Atlanta. I think when he tried to thread the needle between, I think it was Bell and maybe Reddick. I forget exactly at the end, but like. And then I see it a lot in dirt late model racing too. This similar thing is like if you're leading somebody and they come to pass you and you cut and you have this type of collision, where in the etiquette, where is the cutoff? Is it you got to have a wheel on them, a fender? Like where is the etiquette?
Well, I mean, on an oval racing is very different from the road course, right? Like, obviously, everyone hits each other on the road courses all the time. If you're side by side, like that's the etiquette that's been set, which is a shame. And I've obviously been a victim of that. Many other people have. But on an oval, it is very different. Like, you would expect, and for the most part, everyone is pretty decent when it comes to being side by side. Like, if you've got a tire there on the high side, I mean, you're there. And the worst person that gets affected is the car that comes up into the other car, right? Like the St. Alex Palou thing, right? Renus kept racing. Renus kept going. Now he's damaged and he's out of the race essentially. But the person who is going to get, turn into the wall is the person coming up from the inside. So it's just, it never doesn't end in a crash, essentially. So, the spotters are very good in our series, and it is a respect thing, though. It is an oval respect thing. I think that is just part of the game. If a car is there, I mean, for the most part, ain't nobody going anywhere, right? Like, they're going to be there still until you get that clear from the spotter. So, both of those situations, there's really no egregious fault. Like the thing is you can't just say, oh, that was dumb by one guy. It's like, well, no, I can kind of see how both situations could have happened. So, like, there's no one really who you can pick out and just say that was dumb, because all four of those drivers involved in these two accidents, pretty intelligent folks for the most part, and very fast drivers, but everyone's hustling for the same space. So, as I mentioned in the Rasmussen incident, I do believe the majority of the blame is on Will Power. But because of who that is, because of how little respect he has for anyone else, Christian Rasmussen, that if you don't like it, well, then that's what you do. So I don't know how that's a double standard. Then it's like, okay, well, I'm going to hit everyone, but no one else is allowed to hit me. So that's just kind of the problem that I have with it, because I would have loved to I was enjoying watching the battle, and I would have loved to have seen it continue. You know what I mean? So you got to have the respect on ovals. I do believe it was more on Will Power than it was on Christian Rasmussen. I will completely say that. But the respect has to be there. So that's what I would say. I couldn't wait to talk about that, because I saw a lot of people talk about it, and I couldn't wait to be like, look, as someone who knows directly what's going on here, and I've talked to a lot of other people, man, that guy's so fast, and he should have won that race by a mile. But you got to have respect for your competitors at some point. You can be a very aggressive guy, but you got to have respect.
One other thing I wanted to ask you about that real quick. Go ahead. If you're the lead car, okay, so say you're Will or say you're Alex in both these situations, and the guy gets to your outside, what do you have to do to be able to, because your car, it seems like it's kind of naturally drifting up, like onto the straightaway. Do you have to do something evasive if that guy gets to you to give them a lane? Like, do you have to get out of the throttle, or can you purposely kind of turn to the left?
Well, it depends on how early you catch it, right? So being on the inside is usually worse on an oval, like Phoenix or like St. Louis. Sometimes, like we saw it with me and Pato, like Pato going side by side at St. Louis, him trying to stay low gave me the ability to eventually get a run and continuously get a run. So you gain more momentum by rolling the top side, and all you have to do as the car on the top side is get to the side pod of the car below, because then they have to lift more and turn more, and that just scrubs more speed. So realistically, you do want to get to the low side to defend if that's where your car is most comfortable, but it's really hard to defend from a car who's decent on the high side. So again, the low side, shorter distance. It is the shorter distance, but usually the car on the top side can eventually make it work depending on the track. And Rasmussen was able to make it work because he was able to run a little bit higher. And Will, like what Will needed to do was get higher a little bit earlier. Just take his air away. Like what Will had done a few laps earlier, I don't know if the TV broadcast really showed it, but Will was doing a fantastic job finding where Christian was fast and getting in front of him. So he would get understeer or get loose. And he was taking his air away like crazy. I mean, there were a couple moments where Rasmussen almost lost it when Will Power would take his air away. I was watching literally from the grandstand, and I could see his car moving because Will was able to kind of track where he's going. Will's spotter was able to tell him, hey, he's been good on the high side, so Will enters a little bit higher. And then when he forces Rasmussen to go low, Rasmussen then pushes up into his air and then doesn't get a run. So Will was being very smart, but he just missed it on the moment where they came together. So that's kind of how it works, I would say.
That makes sense.
So yeah, it was overall though just a great race, and I wanted to say something about this too. I think that when you look at some of the cars that have struggled so far this year, it's going to be tough to see how they rebound because everyone is so good this year. Like I got to say, there are a couple stragglers that have been struggling so far, but the majority of the field is so talented and so competitive. If you lose ground in this championship, it's going to be tough to gain it back. And Josef Newgarden now is the championship leader. Alex Palou moved down a little bit. I can't remember the last time he finished 24th. So it's good for us, good for the series. But there's definitely going to be some drivers in the next few races that unless they start turning things around, there's going to be a lot of pressure. And the month of May is also a month full of pressure. So it's going to be interesting to see how it plays out. Real quick as well, I talked to a fan. So I stayed for the Xfinity race. Well, the O'Reilly Auto Parts race after the IndyCar race. Because I was there. My manager also manages Chandler Smith, so we were there with the Hettinger racing team, just having a gander at what was going on there. And the next morning, I flew out Sunday morning very early, and I had my IndyCar hats on my backpack, and there was a fan there who did not know who I was. He just asked, "Oh, hey, did you go to the IndyCar race?" And I said, "Yes, I did." I said, "What did you think?" He's like, "It was awesome." And let me remind you, this person had no idea who I was. I CDs on my backpack, but unless you really actually know IndyCar, you probably don't know who I am. So I had a conversation. I was like, did you? He's like, man, I can't believe Josef won. It was such a good race to watch. It was awesome. And I asked him, did you stay for the NASCAR race? He's like, no, I did not. And I find that very interesting. I had another friend say to me that after the IndyCar race, there was a lot of traffic leaving before the O'Reilly Auto Parts race. And that kind of surprised me because I thought there would be more of a combination of, hey, we're going to come here for the O'Reilly race, but we're going to catch the IndyCar race as well. But shout out to those IndyCar fans who, now again, I was hoping that I'm okay with IndyCar fans staying for the NASCAR stuff. I love a bit of, combination. But it was interesting to hear that we had folks fly out there purely for the IndyCar race, and that was it. So shout out to those folks. I thought that was a really interesting thing to hear, and I was glad that this man, he had a great time watching it, and he's never been to the Indy 500. I said, hey, well, you got to go to the Indy 500 sometime. You definitely got to go. And this guy also goes to Long Beach, which is awesome, so IndyCar fan. But I was trying to convince him to go to the Indy 500, and then off we went on our merry way. So that was kind of a cool little conversation. I was like, hey, just curious, did you stay for the other one? And apparently not everyone did. So yeah, I don't know. I would have stayed, but also I'm a psycho race fan. So it is what it is.
I think maybe if it was, I think if you don't have a super deep understanding of motorsports, you might not understand the tiering of NASCAR. So maybe if it was a cup race after the IndyCar race, maybe you'd be like, oh yeah, this is the premier thing. But I think maybe people get mixed up with the connotation of it being oh, this is the second tier of NASCAR. You might not feel inclined to stay for that, but just based on my interactions and what I noticed way more people from the NASCAR side tuning in to the IndyCar to be like, oh, cool, this is an IndyCar thing that's special. I'm going to check it out versus the other way around. I don't know how many diehard open wheel fans felt inclined to watch, stock car racing over the weekend.
Yeah, and I did notice one of our stock car racing colleagues, I believe you pointed out that he said he didn't like podiums. Was this Travis?
This is our coworker, Travis, over at Dirty Mo Media. Yeah.
Let me tell you
into
something
question.
about podiums.
Yeah,
he didn't like podiums. He said no one cares who finishes third. Wrong. Right out the gate. I'm just going to go ahead and say it. You know what's awesome? The gold, silver, and bronze medal in the Olympics. You know who keeps a medal count? Everyone. We're a medal count. Podiums are something that, again, have been established in open wheel racing, in F1. I feel like IndyCar for forever. I mean, dude, it's a big accomplishment to be on the podium at a race. It's hard. I know that NASCAR is only the winner. That's cool, and that's fine. And that's kind of, I feel like, always the way it's been. But man, I feel like what we're doing, I even think NASCAR should have podiums. Because now, again, their winter celebrations are big. They got donuts and all kinds of smoky burnouts and exploding tires and fire and stuff like that. But, man, it's pretty impressive no matter what level of motorsport you're at the top, whether it's F1, IndyCar, NASCAR, IMSA. The podium, when you're in the top three, that's pretty solid. So let's hand out trophies and let's celebrate that. Because guess what? When I watch the Olympics and I see these people competing for their countries and they are crying because they got a medal, that's pretty awesome. I like that model. I like that. That thing. We gotta celebrate accomplishments of folks that dedicate their whole life. So that's what I say to you, Travis.
Yeah. I feel like from being on this show with you and listening in on your conversations with like Will Power and Scott Dixon and some of the best drivers in the world we have in IndyCar, and those guys are sitting here being like, man, the competition is so tough in IndyCar. Like, and you look at qualifying and you've got 20 something cars within a second, like I can see it in your guys' personality and the way that you guys talk. It's like just being in the top three is a day.
Big deal.
Let alone winning. So
big day. To
me, the podium speaks to the toughness of the IndyCar series, the parity. It's like,
yes,
there is so much parity in the field, so I'm all for it. Also, I keep saying, championship car racing in the United States, open wheel racing is the oldest form of motor racing we have. So the tradition, keeping that tradition going, it's awesome. It's cool to have any kind of tradition, so I'm all for it.
I agree. I'm right there with you. I don't know if there's anything else from Phoenix to cover, but once again, shout out to the fans, shout out to the series. Just an amazing weekend. I can't wait to see how many people watched. I did already have one person yesterday. It was the vet. My little puppy was getting his last of his puppy vaccine shots, and she was like, oh, I actually completely forgot that the race was on Saturday. Now, again, I hope we don't have that. I was like, I hope that we don't have that. Like, oh no, the race is not on Sunday. But gosh, it will not be down to lack of entertainment. And I think anyone with an intelligent brain knows that. And even Friday night, I was out in Scottsdale a little bit, having some dinner, and went to one of the sports bars there. And again, Fox was on, so because the World Baseball Classic, right, it's on Fox. So that's usually, sporting events on television. And every single commercial break was an IndyCar and NASCAR ad. So I got to give credit to Fox. Like, they're pushing it hard, and that was really cool to see. Really enjoy being at the track with the NASCAR folks as well. I don't think our fan bases realize how much we all have respect for each other. And I love seeing all the broadcasts, right? You even had James Hinchcliffe on the CW broadcast. You had Townsend Bell and Hinch on the Fox broadcast on Sunday for the Cup race. You had Joey Logano in the booth for our race. How is that not awesome? Like, that's just, it's an incredible crossover. All of the people that are actually in this industry, for the most part, like the drivers and stuff like that, we love it. We love racing. So why not do more of these combo weekends? I think it's fantastic. And I think for our fans, it's awesome. So shout out to Fox for doing that. And CW's not even Fox, but CW had Hinch on. Like, good for them. I think that's a great deal. Now, the next step we need is an IndyCar driver to race the IndyCar race on Saturday, and then also the O'Reilly race on Saturday night. That's the next step, or the Cup race on Sunday. We need to have that happen. That would be awesome. But just overall, what a show. So let's get to, also, I didn't mention this, but we are going to talk to Josef Newgarden. he's been a busy man. He was down in D.C. Announcing the track layout there with all the major players in Washington, D.C. So that track is now out. Obviously a short street circuit. I believe I mentioned that on the show, but pretty short street circuit, but a lot of pomp and circumstance around that event. And every driver, it seems, is pumped for the kind of the big show that will be. Obviously free to the public, which is going to be cool. So we also have a Arlington race to look at this weekend. So Arlington, a new street course. And again, from what I saw, Felix Rosenquist actually posted today a little video of the Honda Sim, him doing a lap there. Really long straights and some interesting corners. I think it's going to be a great track. I am going to drive the two-seater on Saturday morning. So I am going to get to drive it. So I'll be able to give you a little bit of a read on what it feels like when we finish this show. And we talk next week. But really just can't wait to see how this event is executed, right? This is, I think, one of the major new events in this kind of new Penske ownership, right? Like it's a major street course event where Jerry Jones is involved. Texas sports are involved. And I just want to see how it's executed. I want to see what what it's like, parking, what's getting in the event, what's how's the paddock set up, all that stuff, because that stuff is very important. It's important to see, in year one, how has everything been accomplished. So we'll give our picks too as well. We'll obviously talk about the picks, but people are pumped about this weekend, and I hope the fans show up as well. I hope people show up to this one. I think it'll be a cool one to see. I'm going down. I'm going to be down there Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And I'm probably going to leave around middle of the race Sunday because I have no interest in being at a race that I'm not a part of. Even though Phoenix was awesome, I had to stay there for sponsor stuff. So that's what we do. What do you think? Should we give our picks for Arlington?
Yeah, I wanted to ask you going into this. So I'm trying to do my diligence here for picks, and I'm trying to look at past data. So obviously, it looks like Arlington's going to be the longest street course that IndyCar's raced at in quite some time. It's even longer than Belle Isle was. When it comes to street courses, and really road courses too, do you look at distance as a contributing factor to who might be good? Like, obviously, Andretti's been dominant at street courses. Are street courses just kind of street courses, or do you think the length of the track is going to play a factor?
I don't think the length really plays a factor at all. I think the length of the straight does, though. It's a very long straight with a couple little bends here and there. And when you get to qualifying, is there a chance that you trim the car out for more straight speed? That could be one thing that might be of interest, because every street race, you're max downforce. Long Beach is really the only one where you have a long enough straight to consider trimming out for the race. There's been several cars who have taken some rear wing out for the race. And other than that, Detroit, it's a long straight. No chance you're going to take downforce out for that race. I think some people have tried, but it's going to be a question for this race. How much downforce are we going to take out? Because that is a long straight. So that'll be cool to see. But also the surfaces are just such low grip on these street circuits that teams who have been good there in the past, like at a street course, are still going to be good at a street course. But you're going to see it drastically change from FP1 to qualifying to the race. And that's what's going to be most interesting, is who can keep up with the track changes, who can keep up with the grip that goes down. Because when you get to a new street circuit, boy, things are completely different from FP1 to FP2, qualifying, warm up. Things change each time, and you just got to always be willing and ready to make the proper adjustments.
Gotcha. I understand.
Yeah. So, well, let's get to our picks for the race. If you've paid attention, I've been doing fantasy picks for IndyCar on the Grid Rival app, so please have a look at those. I feel very confident in my picks there. But I'll start out, Bobby. I'll give you my three. I think Alex Palou is immediately going to be back in Alex Palou form. I 100% think that. However, I think Kyle Kirkwood is going to be right there as well. So I'm going to go Alex Palou, Kyle Kirkwood, and for me also, it feels like I have to have a Penske driver. It feels like a Scott McLaughlin. All right, I'm going to go Scott McLaughlin. I was going to go Marcus Ericsson because he had a very, very strong run at St. Pete. Very strong run. But I'm going to go McLaughlin, Kirkwood, and Palou. Super basic, super easy. I know.
I want to give a shout out to one of our listeners, Lynn, who is doing a great job of keeping track of our podium picks, by the way.
I know.
Not that we're wagering, but it's good to know.
Yes.
It's definitely playing in my brain where I'm like, okay, I got to do a better job here. But I agree with you. I think that Alex is going to bounce back. I think that was a fluke thing. I don't think it was enough to disrupt the machine. He's obviously incredibly strong at street courses. I expect Kyle Kirkwood and Andretti to. I've seen enough out of Kyle these first two races at St. Pete and then at Phoenix to be like, okay, these guys are still hot. I think he's going to probably pick. I would not be surprised to see him win. And then I'm also going to go with Pato. Same thing. I've seen enough out of him at St. Pete and at Phoenix to see that McLaren is still fast. He's still fast. He's one of our best street course racers as well. So yeah, my three are going to be Kyle, Palou, and Pato.
All right. That's pretty solid. Real quick before we get to our Josef Newgarden interview as well, we want to do a Colton Herta coverage, a Colton catch-up. Colton Herta gets points in his F2 debut. Now, he did crash in the first practice session, which is tough. He's already started on the back foot, but I mean, honestly, getting points in your debut is solid. The feature race is the most important race, and great effort from Colton. I don't think people realize how different it is and how difficult it is getting over there to do that. So good for him for getting some points here on the board. We're on the board, and we move on to the next one. And then a real quick F1 update, too, because everyone saw that F1 was happening over the weekend. And boy, did it look interesting for a while. There were talks of the cars being like Mario Kart mushrooms. There were talks of the cars just being awful. F1 is silencing people on the internet, muting the replies. Aston Martin can't finish a race. The whole thing is fascinating to me, honestly. I thought the beginning of the race looked kind of cool with a few overtakes for the lead. A lot of people told me I was an idiot because it's like too gimmicky. I was like, well, we've had DRS for the last 10, 15 years. That's a gimmick. I mean, you can never please race fans, honestly. Everyone's angry at something all the time. But the drivers don't seem to really even be enjoying the cars. And some of the accidents, too. You saw like Max Verstappen crashing because the rear's just locked on him. I'm blown away. Like, again, everyone thinks F1 is the tippy top, and it is. But my gosh, we're designing cars that are just spinning randomly. Like, this is, first of all, racing is hard. How many times have we said that on the show? Racing is hard. It's very difficult. So I think it's fine to see everyone go through these types of difficulties. That's what Formula One is. It's difficult to be the best within a set of regulations. So I don't mind seeing the struggles because I think it's all about how you get through that and who is going to do the best job building their car to get through it. Formula One is heavily based on the teams. The team's championship, what the team does. It doesn't matter if Max Verstappen's in one of the Cadillacs, right? He ain't winning. That's how it is. So that's part of the game. So I'm excited to see what the teams do, honestly. I thought there was some exciting overtakes at the beginning. There's a bit of lead changing as people were trying to figure it out. Then people couldn't figure out their batteries. People were all over the place. So it was an interesting one for me to watch. I thought it was good to see Mercedes succeed. It was good to see Ferrari fast, too. I think that was kind of cool. But it will be fascinating to see how they continue. I am a Formula One fan, obviously. I know that. and I can't wait to see how these teams develop. Did you watch it at all, Bobby?
I was tuning in and out. I obviously was very interested to see. I had caught wind of the Aston Martin thing ahead,
Yes.
going into the weekend. So I was pretty curious to see what it was going to look like, and obviously seeing Max crash and then Oscar crash, like before the race even started.
Oscar crashed on the way to the grid.
Yeah.
Like, Oscar didn't forget how to drive.
No. I mean, it's a
Just
world
letting
champion.
everyone know. Didn't forget how to drive. Like,
Yeah.
that's crazy,
Yeah.
what these cars are doing.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think, I've seen a lot of race fans. I mean, a lot of race fans, I think, are disenfranchised with F1. I think mainly probably F1 fans, so I think a lot of people are dunking on F1 after this past weekend. And
Yeah.
I don't really want to do that. Like I'm not like a huge F1 fan, but I do appreciate the eyes that it's bringing to motorsports in general, and I think we always say like, that's good for everybody always, like, so I do hope they figure it out, but I think it was just like the dynamic was it was for IndyCar and NASCAR to have a great weekend and then for F1 to have a really wild weekend. It was a very interesting dynamic in the whole world of motorsports.
It was. And, I mean, I'm going to be tuned in as much as I can, unless, time zones permit it. But yeah, great to have just motorsport fully locked back in. I mean, we have 3 weeks in a row of IndyCar racing too to start out the season. It just makes me feel alive again. It makes you feel alive. I also feel like it'll get us to the month of May faster. So for those who aren't participating until then, we get there as soon as possible. Thank you to those who came out as well to the ARCO AM/PM for the appearance that Ty Gibbs and I had. Had a great chat with Ty Gibbs. I enjoyed talking with him. I hadn't really got to speak with him much. He obviously had AM/PM on his car during the race on Sunday, the Cup race, and he did a great job, finished in the top 5. Great result for him. And it was just fun to chat with him. Had a great turnout of race fans in Phoenix, and appreciate our sponsors, ARCO and AM/PM. They are great people. Had a great group of folks from ARCO at the Phoenix race on Saturday, and super proud to continue to represent for them. So yeah, I think motorsport is back. We're going to Arlington. We then have a week off, but Barber then comes quickly. I don't think I'm going to go to Barber unless I have a reason to go to Barber. So we'll see. But anyway, let's get to our interview. Let's get to Josef Newgarden. We got to have a chat with him. He's the winner, and I'm excited to talk with this winner of not only the most recent race at Phoenix, but the last race we had at Phoenix as well, Josef Newgarden. Ladies and gentlemen, we finally have another person to talk to. What a luxury it is in life to get to speak with a man who has defeated Alex Palou, a man who is leading the championship once again. He's very familiar with that position. Also, a guy who had a very low-key, fantastic race in St. Pete that not enough people talked about, I feel like. Josef Newgarden, welcome back. You're pretty much undefeated in Phoenix, essentially, over the last 2 races that we've had there.
Hey, congrats to you! Did you get this announcement out?
Oh, thanks.
So we're going Indy 500, baby.
This is a big episode. Big episode, Joseph.
When are we getting the full year announced?
That's a great question. We're going to keep working on that. Well, we're eyes towards the future. Eyes towards the future.
We'll start with Indy. Well, congrats. Yeah, it was a good weekend. We had a tough start in St. Petersburg. Very tough start. It ended. It ended in a good way in the race, but the weekend as a whole was really difficult. And then I felt like we put together a solid weekend in Phoenix. So it's early. We're 2 races in, and everybody's already getting excited. But I think we've had a good start for sure.
I want to actually start with St. Pete because I find it very interesting how competitive our field is, right? You get to qualifying. Was there an issue that went on? Was it like, hey, we didn't switch the tires on? A lot of people say, like Pato has said when he's qualified, all of a sudden 20th, it's like, we just didn't get the best out of the tires. Is that where we're at now? Is this just missing the tiniest of things? Maybe 1 PSI of pressure here and there? Because, like, let people know, obviously, I mean, you came through the field, but when people see you qualify 24th or whatever it is, it's like, oh my gosh, how is that even possible? But it's like, this is a competitive racing series.
Well, I mean, just to give the rundown, we didn't do a representative lap whatsoever. I mean, I had a huge lockup on the lap that was going to count for myself once I finally had some tire temperature, and I didn't have any more fuel after that. So once I had that huge lockup to start the lap into turn 13, I just had to pit. So that's what happened in qualifying. You didn't see our pace. You know, in the race, we didn't do anything that crazy. It was actually a really boring day for us, but it was great execution. Our car was fast. You know, your car has to be quick to be able to save the fuel that we did and to do the overcut strategies that we were doing. It would be the same way with the undercut strategy. I think Kirkwood made that work super effectively because he was also fast. So, that's what I would say. We had the pace in the race. We just put ourselves in a hole right from the very beginning. And that really started at the beginning of the weekend. Practice 1 was really tough for us. I had a spin. We were experimenting with some setup stuff that we've been wanting to try for a while. It didn't pan out, so we had to undo all that. And then really the name of the game for me was just braking. I just could not get my braking sorted out personally throughout the weekend. And that was sort of the Achilles heel all the way to the race. And then the race, we, finally found our rhythm and we put together a good day. But, this field is, to come back to your original point, this field's too good that if you have a tough start to the weekend, it's really difficult to recover. Even with that second practice, you're kind of you're a session behind. Even if you get a run behind, you're playing catch up through the weekend. So it's made it incredibly difficult nowadays where you have to come off the truck pretty good and you can't misstep. Every now and then you can get away with one and you recover, but most of the time if you misstep, you're on the back foot for the rest of the weekend.
I found it very interesting that you just mentioned that you struggled on the brakes because your former teammate, Will Power, switching to a new team, big issues on the brakes. Were you surprised by what he was struggling with and how, obviously, we know how different these cars can be and philosophies, but it was very interesting that you said, well, I actually also struggled on the brakes. Were you surprised by Will's comments and what he was kind of struggling with as well?
Yeah, I think ours was a completely different reason. The tire is different this year as well. So some of that might have compounded into our issue, and that the tire is harder for sure. It's less grip than last year on the primary tire. So that contributed, but Will's problem, is probably isolated to his team. You'd be surprised. We call it is a spec series in a lot of ways, but
ish.
I mean, these cars are dramatically different. Dramatically. The teams are engineering to the best of their ability to find the right balance, the right approach with the tools in front of them, and we actually have a lot more tools than I think people realize when it comes to setting up these cars, the way that the processes that we go through, all these materials too. Everyone has their process for the way they build the materials, the way they put them together, what you're choosing, what and where, and how you utilize them. It's way more intricate, I think, that people realize. So Will going from a Penske car to an Andretti car, I think is a much bigger shift than anyone could realize. And I'm sure the way that car brakes and, is probably tough for him to get adjusted to. And he might have had some other problems as well. You don't know what Andretti's doing. Maybe they were trying some new experimental stuff that didn't pan out as well, that compounded. But they're very different teams, just to kind of harp on that point where the cars they're not the same across the board.
All right, well, let's get to Phoenix, because I thought Phoenix, now I was a spectator, and I tell you what, as a spectator, there couldn't have been a race I wanted to be in more, because it just looked like a lot of fun. I from the start to where, the track's spreading out. I mean, first of all, crazy different from the last time we were there. I mean, I raced there in 2017, and I don't think I moved a half a lane up once the entire night. Like, I was like, nope, there's nothing happening here. A ton of downforce. But this track was, everyone was spread out. There seemed to be good tire deg. Talk about what IndyCar and Firestone did. The package seemed to work. Would you agree?
Yeah, you would have loved this race.
Hey, I know.
I mean, this was like classic, IndyCar short track racing nowadays that we expect, right? This is, and I going into it, I really didn't know what we were going to get. I thought it could be processional, to be honest with you, which would have been a shame. A follow the leader, fuel save race. And up front, I thought that's what it was turning into for the first 60 laps. I was getting a little bit of information. I was hearing there were people running higher. But I wasn't fully sure because I was just sort of following little Dave, and we were saving fuel and not doing much for the very beginning of the race, and then it kicked off. It kicked off like crazy in the middle. You had some really impressive individuals. I mean, I think Rasmussen was, he was just on the edge the entire race, and you could see it. And then some other people were kind of rising to that through the middle, and then it, at the end, it obviously it became a very fun shootout just because there was a tire choice, and that always makes it fun. But it was very different to 2018. You had multiple areas to go, and it was interesting. I actually thought that, I don't know if this is just the NASCAR rubber effect, but the track was pretty clean in multiple sections. And once we put down Firestone rubber, I actually thought the second lane had more grip than the bottom. And it got better. It got better at the end of the race. So it was so much fun to drive. And I mean, this is what creates good racing is, racing room. You have to be able to go somewhere with these cars and have multiple lanes. It's so funny. I think about this with the Indy 500 these days. We have a really good race of the Indy 500. It's also not a short oval. But could you imagine if we had two lane racing at Indy, like how crazy that place would be? It's what it makes me think of.
I mean, it is for the first few laps. Let me tell you, I feel like there have been more brave people in the last, and you being one of them, and I feel like me and a couple others, like for the first few laps, you can do that. Now, scientifically, it stops after a little while, but our racing on ovals, I think, has been good, but I think it's because drivers are maybe more comfortable with getting out there. Like, you got to go somewhere, right? You got to go somewhere.
Yeah, people want to know there's a lot of contributing factors. The tire makes a difference, to your point. The downforce package absolutely makes a difference. And there's not an exact science on these things. Every track reacts a little differently. Some react better to higher downforce, some react better to the lower downforce, depending on the type of track, as far as the surface and the grip level. But I think the number one contributor is we have to thank Will Power for being absolutely crazy in his recommendation that we have to do a highline session.
Love it. Fantastic. Yeah.
The more we have done this, the more comfortable it has made a lot of people to run in the second lane. And the more people that you make comfortable up there, the more often they use it, the more likely it is to stay clean and to be usable and to actually take rubber throughout the race. I think that's been the number one driver of all of this, is that there's just a lot more people that like running high. And because of that, now you keep it clean and you're making it usable. There's other stuff too, but I think that's the number one factor for us getting this done now.
So when I was watching, and obviously you saw this too, Rasmussen obviously was flying, right? Like the guy was just he for sure, without a doubt, was the star of the show, but also probably. That whole incident, I don't know. I think probably he could have been a little bit more patient. Will Power probably could have given a little bit more room. But again, race how you want to be raced. I feel like if he was on the inside, maybe there was not going to be Anyway, the whole thing was crazy. But when you saw that, were you still confident that, hey, if we get a shot here at the end with tires, a yellow, like you and Luke, you put your thinking caps on and you were like, if there's a late yellow, we're going tires and we're just going to go hard until we see the checker flag. Was that the strategy?
Well, we were always taking tires, regardless of the situation. Even before going into the race, we're taking tires. So that was
5 pit stops you made. 5 pit stops. It's a lot of pit stops.
5 stops, yeah. That was the mentality going into the race. So that didn't change. I will say midway through the race, I thought we were finishing 5th or 6th. I was like, man, this is just. I was really disappointed with that too. I'm like, we're used to running really well in ovals, and I thought this was a 5th or 6th place day, and I just need to try and secure that in the middle. If just to break down our race a little bit more, though, we misstepped in the middle of the race. We did that for a couple different reasons. We had to experiment with our race car. We didn't get a lot of running in the second practice because we had a hybrid issue, and so we only had we had one short run on tires, and we didn't get to do any changes. The track was very different to the test; it was much hotter. So we were relying a lot of the feedback of our teammates and trying to guess a little bit. And, we made some good changes going into the race. The car wasn't too bad, but it wasn't exactly where it needed to be. And so we started searching then in the middle. You start changing front wing and you start playing with your tools, trying to understand, okay, what does the car really want? So we went the wrong direction in the middle, and then we got her all kind of back and dialed the other way at the end of the race. And I will say, like, when I needed the car to be fantastic, it was like that's when the car needed to be good, was that final stint. So when I took tires, it was actually the best the car was the entire race. And then I was able to sort of put it to full use. So Luke did a fantastic job. The team did amazing. And we just executed. It still kind of comes down to that. We didn't maybe have the most spectacular race, but we executed and we stayed in it, and we were rewarded for it.
What's it been like working with Little Dave so far, or Big Dave, or whatever Dave it is? I mean, on the pole, great effort from him. The guy seems to be quick. He seems to be, on the gas. And I mean, has it been an interesting relationship to kind of develop there? And has he surprised you at all?
I think he's anointed himself Medium Dave now.
Medium Dave, all right.
Yeah, he has a pole. He can't be Big Dave. He's got to win the race.
He's not quite Buffalo
first.
sauce. He's medium. He's right there.
He's right. Yeah, he's just
mild.
mid. He's a mid Dave. He's great. I was asked about this in the the content day prior to the year, and I told people, I said, look, Medium Dave.
Medium Dave.
Dave is going to do a great job, and I think there's a lot of people that have looked at him and wondered, why does he have this seat? Does he deserve this? And not had a lot of respect for him being in the seat. And I got to tell you, I think he's excellent. I really do. He's a little different. He's very much from a new generation. I don't understand half the stuff he says. His process is different. Like, we can't find him half the time. Like, we're like, where's Dave? And then he shows up and he's
a big nap guy, I heard. He often just falls asleep. He's a big nap guy.
I think he is. I'm like, where is Dave? But he shows up, and when he shows up, he contributes at a super high level. Like, he knows what he wants. His feedback is concise. It's helpful. He fits right in with the entire group, and he's fast. He's super fast. So I'm not going to be surprised to see him winning races sooner than later. I think he's done a great job. He's been a really great teammate, and we got a good thing going so far. But it's early days. I was saying this before the season, so I believe he will have a really good year. But we're still early, and we got a lot of racing to do.
I think it's still, for me, it's such an odd thing to just see him in those Verizon. I'm just like, it's almost like a different reality. I'm like, this is, wow, it's not Will Power. It's fascinating. But hey, he's out there on pole. He's doing a great job. He had a great race in St. Pete even. Someone told me on Facebook that no one cares who finishes 13th. I was like, that guy was a lap down. Sometimes you can respect a good drive to 13th. Hey, let's respect it. So one more thing about Phoenix, the crowd and the event in general, and them using you guys on the TV broadcast Sunday for the Cup race. I mean, the integration seemed like something that was just awesome for our sport, and ratings were great. I mean, almost 3 million people watching for our second weekend. It feels like a whole new world for us. I mean, who would have thought we'd had 2 races above 1 million viewers? Oh my gosh, a lot of us negative Nancys for a long time thought that wasn't possible. So, I mean, tell me about the weekend, what you thought overall.
Well, you got to give a lot of love to Fox, right?
Fox,
Fox is committed, and they are doing a tremendous job to show our product. Well, we all know this. We've been living in this world forever. We know how good IndyCar racing is. And thank goodness we had a good Phoenix race.
Oh, man, we needed it.
We can't always predict a good race.
Yeah.
I mean, look, any series in the world, that not every single race is going to be a good one. But this was definitely one of our best oval races that we've had in a while. So thank goodness for that. And Fox is just, they have fully taken the baton. Did something fall in your house? What just fell over?
My dog I got a puppy running around my legs. He just knocked over the ring light. It's fine.
I was so confused.
Keep going. That's what I got to deal with now.
This is great. This is the real world right here. No, Fox has done great. For the weekend as a whole, I just want to see more of it. we gotta, it's 2026. It's a new age. We got to get away from this, tit for tat, or we're better, or you guys aren't. Us working together is a good thing. I love NASCAR racing and I love IndyCar racing, and they're two different products and they can coexist, and fans can get the benefit of seeing both of them on a weekend. And I don't care
Amen.
who the headliner, who cares who the headliner is. They're both headliners, So
Absolutely.
let's do it way more often is what needs to happen.
I completely agree. I mean, I thought the crowd as well for that race, it looked strong. And, we've been at races where, like, there was an Iowa time where you're like, oh, man, this is kind of sad. And we put on a great show there, but you look at the stands and you're like, dang. But when you get to Phoenix, you're like, all right, there's a large amount of people here. Let's put on a show for these folks. And I feel like everyone did that. And, it wasn't a wrecked fest. There was a little bit of the craziness here and there. It was just a good overall IndyCar race. And does it feel weird having an oval before the Indy 500? I feel like it hasn't been like that for a little while. Does it get your juices flowing a little bit better? Like, are we in left hand down mode? Like, what? How does that feel? I think it's awesome.
Oh, it feels right. I mean,
Yes.
as in it, we used to always have this, right?
Yes.
So it's a good thing. We need to have an oval before the Indianapolis 500. I'm glad we're at Phoenix. If you know anything about the history of Phoenix Raceway, it's an IndyCar track. It was built for Indy cars. And so, I think it's fitting that we are there. Now that we know race is pretty good, or we can produce a good race there, we should be coming back. But I love it. I wouldn't mind. I still love the balance. I'd like to see a couple more ovals on the calendar, but we got to have the right balance between road, street, and ovals, because that is what makes IndyCar unique as well. I don't want us to get too weighted on one area or another. But if we bump up closer to 20 races, I don't know what we would go to. I don't think you want to get much higher to that, but if you get to 20, then we could maybe fit another oval or two in.
20 is the ideal number, I think. Bobby, I'm gonna let you jump in and ask Joseph a question here. Bobby's very smart. He's got a very educated beard.
Joseph, I talked to Connor about this a couple episodes, and I wanted to get your opinion on it. You guys have a very similar background in racing. Like, you came through karts, you went to Europe, and then you came back stateside. And it seems from my research that a lot of your oval experience really didn't start until you came back to United States. And with your recent win just this past weekend, according to my calculations, you moved up tied to the second most oval wins for IndyCar, tied with Sam Hornish. You're right behind.
Really?
Yeah, you're right behind Scott Dixon, who has 24. You and Sam have 19
that's
now.
the most outright oval wins?
For IndyCar, specifically.
Really? I mean, like, Foyt doesn't have more than that?
Well, I think that these statistics might only be for starting with, like, maybe IRL forward.
Oh, okay. That makes more
sense,
Yeah.
right? Yeah, so this is specifically the modern era of IndyCar. But
okay.
I wanted to, where I was going, what I want to ask you is, what do you think have been some of the key things that have helped you become so proficient on ovals, especially since you didn't grow up doing that?
It's a good question. I don't know. I remember racing Indy Lights in 2011. Connor was there in parts.
Sometimes.
He didn't do the full season.
Yeah.
And I found it tremendously helpful to go. What was really nice about it was I had a really good car in 2011 on the ovals. And I don't know if that just gave me, confidence or what it was. But I will say, as a driver, I have always liked high-speed corners. It's like my favorite.
Same.
It's my favorite thing about a racetrack is a high-speed corner. And that's what ovals are. You're get multiple high-speed corners that you're trying to push the limit. And it's just sort of suited me. And it's kind of funny because ovals had very much suited Connor as well. So,
but they didn't at first. I didn't like ovals until probably 2 or 3 years in, and then it's like something clicked. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
it's weird.
I it's an art form that you learn about, and I think people can take to it in different ways. I mean, Connor just spoke about it. He took to it with it a couple of years in, but I look at someone like Mick. Okay, maybe he didn't have a great race, but I just think his performance in qualifying, not an easy place to qualify the way he did. He might take to this super quickly himself. So it's it's just not the same for everybody. I tried to bring up the high-speed corner comment because I do think that's part of what it is. You have to be really comfortable putting the car on the limit. You have to kind of find a bit of a swagger and confidence to you on an oval. I mean, you're just, if you are not, this has to be for everywhere, but more so on an oval than any other racetrack. If you're not confident in 100% what you're doing with that car, you're just not going to drive it very fast. I promise you, it's very difficult. So you have to be comfortable. Look at what Rasmus is doing. I can tell you that's why he's so fast in the oval. Okay, maybe he's thrown caution to the wind a little bit unnecessarily, but he's so committed and has zero issues with wrecking that race car, which is why he's quick. Yeah. And there's a balancing act there. He's going to probably get bit a couple. He's already been bit, but he'll get bit a couple more times.
Last year he spun at Indy like 3 times and didn't hit anything. I was like, that's crazy. I was like, that's wild.
It's like he gets faster.
It's so impressive.
So there's an element to that. If you gotta be really comfortable with your car on the limit and just have absolutely sort of no reservation for what this thing is going to do. And I feel I don't always have that. I respect what's going on in the race, but when I got to pull the pin, I'm pulling the pin and I'm not even second guessing it. Okay. I'm like pulling it, it's thrown, and I'm right behind it, and I have zero issue with it. And that's kind of what you got to be able to do.
Pulling the pin. That was a good one. Reminds me of the old Call of Duty days when we're out there just running into the war zone. Black Ops 4, whatever it is, 2, who knows, Modern Warfare 2, those were great days. Anyway, Arlington this weekend, new street course. Tell people what they should be looking for. You've obviously been on the sim. There's been some sim videos that have been put out by other drivers. Some very slow Long Beach speed-esque hairpin turns, maybe. I was talking to some people that said it might be really slow first gear and then a long straight that has some maybe more twistier turns than expected down there. What do you think?
The straightaway's got my attention of anything. I mean, it's a massive straightaway. This has to be the longest straightaway that we're going to anywhere on the calendar.
Wow.
It's longer than Detroit.
Road America?
I believe it's longer than Road America. It is a massive straightaway. It's over a mile long, I think.
Trimming out for qualifying.
I think you might. I don't know what it is. It's huge. So it's going to be how is that going to play into, the overall lap time of the track and qualifying and race conditions? And then how is it going to affect the race? Are we going to have this, kind of battled amongst everybody? Having said that, I mean, Road America ends up, it doesn't turn into a draft fest necessarily. So it might not. But I think, the way you're going to navigate that with downforce levels is what's got my attention the most. The rest of the place, I think you can kind of figure out. We're going to see how bumpy it is when we show up. We didn't have that information for the simulator just yet. So we don't really know the surface condition, but I think it should be in good shape. But I think more than anything, the spectacle of the event is going to be off the charts. Everything that the Dallas Cowboys have been putting into this, they are so committed. They've been a great partner. And I think it's going to be a really fun event to go to. You're going to have a lot to do. There's going to be plenty for fans to, the beauty of an IndyCar race too is you don't need to be in one spot. I've been to F1 races before, including like the Miami Grand Prix. And typically when you go to one of these events, you get a ticket, and where your ticket is where you're staying. And like, that's not how an IndyCar race is. You can just buy a paddock pass or a ticket for somewhere, and you can go anywhere on the track. You can check the whole thing out. And I think that's the beauty of it. So I think people are going to have a fun time at this event.
I agree. Well, we appreciate it, Joseph. I don't want to take up too much of your time. You've been a media mogul this week. You've been out there in D.C. doing stuff, at the Capitol, been at all kinds of things, simulatoring. So we appreciate your time. Congratulations. And we will see you in Arlington for the Dallas, Texas, Dallas Cowboys, Arlington, Texas Rangers, whatever it is, Grand Prix of Arlington. We appreciate Josef Newgarden for joining us. Love that we already have 2 different winners. Can we make it 3 different winners in 3 races this year? That would feel very much like an IndyCar thing. I hope so. Well, we got a quick update on ratings. Of course, we know we were talking about this earlier in the show. We wanted to hear about what was happening, and since this show is releasing a little bit later on Wednesday, we were able to get this information out. But 1.247 million viewers for Phoenix on a Saturday. This is straight from Fox, up 95% over last year's 639,000 average viewership for Saturday races on Fox, and up 77% over second race of the 2025 season. Race peaked at 1.468 million viewers. Best Saturday IndyCar race viewership since 2020, Texas. Up 391% versus last Phoenix IndyCar race, which was 254,000. Guys, this is just awesome, and we appreciate the fans. This is all thanks to you folks who are probably listening to this, who are contributing to the IndyCar community. Probably not a lot of the haters don't listen to this, but there's a lot of people who love to just throw rocks at IndyCar, and no one ever just says, hey, great job. And I think the folks and the folks within IndyCar and the leadership, everyone sees all the rocks that are thrown. So when you guys are throwing rocks, make sure to thank them for the work that's been done, because there is a difference. This is making a difference. This is what's going to help propel our sport continuously into the future. So let's just say, hey, give them a thank you tweet. Good work. Let's do some good stuff. And there are several accounts who I see on the internet very often. I should name them, but I won't. But, all it is just throwing rocks and, that's bad. It's like, nope, guess what? This is actually really good. And so this is positive. Can't wait to see what Arlington is this weekend. I think IndyCar's got a lot of great momentum, so we should be really thrilled about it. This is a big deal. Like, this is really a big deal for the partners, for the charter ownership, for Fox's ownership, for everything. So thank you, and fantastic news overall. All right, let's get to a fantastic segment. Oh, wait, before we get there, let's tell you how to watch this weekend, because we didn't tell you how to watch this weekend in Arlington. It's going to be, obviously, 12:30 p.m. Eastern on Fox. We're always on Fox, folks. It's easy to find, always on Fox. March 15th, Sunday, 12:30 p.m. Eastern on Fox. Can't wait for that one. All right, let's get to the Ricky Treadway Random Indy 500 Driver of the Week.
The greatest event of its kind that's ever been run on.
Let's meet the drivers. Who make up the field?
This week, we've got the 1934 Indianapolis 500 results. Bill Cummings won this race. And we are going to choose where did he go? The 30th place finisher. The 30th place finisher, Gene Haustein, maybe. The 30th place finisher, Eugene William Haustein, was an American racing driver, according to Wikipedia. Again, not a scientific source. Haustein drove in 16 AAA championship car races between 1930 and 35, including 3 Indianapolis 500. So 1931 was his first Indy 500, 1933 and 1934. So that's pretty cool. 3 Indy 500s to his name. Great to see his efforts there. Anything else that you find interesting for him?
I've seen he has other starts he was racing a lot of the dirt ovals at the time. So Syracuse, New York State Fairgrounds, Michigan State Fairgrounds. He actually ran a race not far from me, Roby Speedway, which is like basically 30 minutes from where I sit in Hammond, Indiana. And that track always had like a June Champ Car race after the Indy 500. This is
awesome.
I'm talking like 1930s. So yeah, Gene was very active there in the 30s for some time.
Heck yeah. What an era. A Detroit, Michigan man, it sounds like. And he died age 77 in Sacramento, California. So good stuff. We learn more every show. All right, we appreciate you folks. Please like the video, like the podcast, tweet it, Instagram it, thread it, Facebook it, whatever you want to do to it. We appreciate you sharing. We're going to hopefully talk to a new driver next week. And I'll see you all at the Indy 500, of course, as well. Please cheer for the number 23 car. So thank you guys, and we'll see you next week on Speed Street. Hey everyone, Connor Daly here. Please leave a like on this video if you did enjoy it, and also subscribe to the channel as well. That would be very helpful. Be a friend, tell a friend. Thank you so much for the support, and we'll see you on the next episode of Speed Street.